Mr. Sameer Agarwal. Welcome to the World's Best Office, a podcast where we sit back, relax, and talk about anything and everything. Thank you so much for taking up time. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and I'm doing really well. Thank you.
So, for all those who may not know you by face, could you just give us a brief introduction about who you are and what you've built?
Sure. My name is Sameer Agarwal. I'm the founder of Refin. Refin is a digital lending platform that provides loans for electric vehicles. We focus primarily on commercial electric vehicles, and so far we've financed over 18,000 electric vehicles across 16 states in over 200 towns, and we've done that completely digitally. We work with customer segments that are near prime, or near subprime, or near bottom of the pyramid. These are people who are generally financially excluded. They have no past credit history. They don't have any banking transaction data. Very low level of education. Very low level of language skills. So we've created a very innovative technology to underwrite such people or to be able to assess such people for loans. So that's our USP.
So what inspired you to start something like Refin?
So I was a banker in my previous life. I was working in London, and I had the opportunity to work with what was classified as the subprime sector over there. And with those customers, I was told that I have to create a model to underwrite such customers digitally. Now, unfortunately, with that customer group, there is no data available. Without data, you can't create an algorithm, and if there's no algorithm, you can't make a digital decision. So I was in this unique place where I had to do digital decisions for them without any data. And so I thought, one way was to just say that it's not going to happen. But I thought, let's just understand how these people are getting loans today. And today, what was happening, or that time, what was happening is they used to go to a branch, sit in front of an underwriter who would assess their application and make a decision. And what I found really fascinating was that by the time the customer walked into a branch and went and sat in front of the underwriter, in most of the cases, they had made a decision even before the customer sat down, without any conversation with them. And it was a good decision that was being made. So I found that very, very strange, very interesting. I thought, why is this happening? And I realized that the underwriter is just looking at certain personality traits to make that decision. When they walk in, are they well dressed, as an example? Are they carrying a properly organized file of documents? They were making decisions on this. It didn't matter what the file contained, but just the fact that they had a file was sufficient for the underwriter. So I realized that normally in a banking or a lending environment, we use past credit behavior to predict future financial behavior. And I said, if I ignore the word past credit and just look at human behavior, that should also be able to forecast future financial performance or credit performance.
Right. Okay, so you mentioned that you had like a previous life, in banking and other corporates. Did that influence your approach towards Refin?
It does in many ways, actually. So I come from a very, very large bank, a multinational bank, and the approach over there was very, very structured. Right, you would plan a lot before you do things, and in some ways, a lot of what I've learned over there has been imbibed over here as well. So we are generally, it doesn't feel that way, but compared to other startups, we are very well organized. We are very structured. We have a very good set of reports coming out, as an example. Also, during my banking career, I learned that we should never do anything that's not profitable. Right. So the way we build this business is also to focus on profitability, to make sure that every loan that we do makes us money. Right. Otherwise, we don't do it. Right. So I think those fundamentals of planning, putting some structure, being profitable has really, really helped us.
So you mentioned that you knew what the issue was. So do you believe that an entrepreneur should always have a TAM established and a data-centric problem before he starts, or he can just start and address those issues later?
I think you don't need to have a specific sort of a TAM number in mind, but I think one must think about why one wants to become an entrepreneur. And generally, I would say, and the reason why I started and why most entrepreneurs start is because they want to solve a really, really big problem through some form of innovation. Now the question is, if you want to solve a big problem, and then that means it is big, so the TAM must be big, right? And it's not, you don't have to really quantify that, but you can just say this is a very, very large problem, and I want to solve this problem through some form of innovation. I think that has to be the basis for any entrepreneurial journey, and that's how I started as well, right? So I knew the problem I was focusing on was trying to provide credit to people who had no access to credit, and that's a large problem across the globe, and especially in India as well. Right now, but within that, we started focusing on electric vehicles. So that's a subset of the entire market, and electric vehicle has its own TAM as well. So when I started, I didn't think that we're going to focus on electric vehicles and this is going to be the TAM. Even today, if you ask me what is the TAM of electric vehicles, I can't really tell you because the market is just in very early days and it's growing, right? So what is TAM today is that the TAM 5 years from now is going to be probably 10x, 20x of that, right? So I think for me, I know it's going to become huge. There is going to be scale. I think that's more important than what that exact number is.
So, was this before you started, when you had this idea of RefFin, what was your basic idea like?
So the basic idea was very simple. There is an individual who gets no access to credit. They don't get loans because of who they are. No, as I said, no education, no past credit history, no banking transactions. We have to be able to give them loans. So that was the first thing, and we have to be able to give it digitally because if you have to scale, it has to be done digitally, right? So that was the basic idea that we started with.
It may be a personal one, but how do you balance the demands of running a successful business like RefFin and also like with your personal values being associated with it? How do you maintain that balance, and what are the strategies that have been most effective to you?
I think if you look at personal values, so first of all, when you start a business, you bring a lot of yourself into it, and in a way, your personal values become the values of the organization, right? And then that starts forming the culture in the organization. So for us, when I started, and this is again, to the earlier question you asked me, what learning did you bring in from a larger organization? We started with values, right? Right from day one, we had values in the organization, which obviously generally companies don't have for a very long time. And we have 3 values in the organization. That's honesty, ownership, and transparency. And those are my personal values as well, right? Now, when you bring your personal value to the organization, then therefore, you don't have to strike a balance. It just becomes a part of your extended personal values.
So did you always want to start something of your own? Was it that you saw a problem and you thought you might have a solution?
If you ask me in all honesty, I think I always wanted to start something of my own. But obviously, coming from a middle-class Indian upbringing, I don't think that was a choice. So I did what every other middle-class Indian boy at my time did: became an engineer, did an MBA, started working in an MNC, right? And then somewhere along the way, later on in life, there was a moment when I thought I should be doing something much beyond what I'm doing.
So could you please emphasize on what was that moment?
Okay, so there were 2 trigger points in my life. The first one, which was the big one, was when my wife told me she's pregnant with our first child. That was my first big sort of trigger point. And that day I thought, the life I've lived so far, I can't live that life anymore. Something has to change, and if it doesn't change now, it's never going to change, right? So I think that was the big sort of trigger point, and then that played on my mind for the next 2 years, and it took me 2 years from that point to actually set this up.
So how long back was this?
This was 2014, right? And then I actually started this in 2018, but by early 2017, I knew I was going to do this. So 2017 to 2018 was kind of just prepping and getting into it.
So, if you could just move on to what RefFin is doing. So, what we read about RefFin and what sounded unique to us was that RefFin was using psychometrics, biometrics, and gamification to underwrite loans. As you said, that you're doing something unique, and the impact that is creating. So, if you could just enlighten us a lot of us about that.
Yeah, sure. So, as I said, our customers don't have any data that you can use to create algorithms to underwrite. So we knew that, so we started with 2 things. We said, one, we have to
given that they don't have any past financial behavior, you have to focus on their human behavior or personality traits. That was one. And the second was, this data does not exist anywhere. Right? So there's no third-party data. So you have to create that data as part of the user journey that you're creating.
Okay.
So with that thought in mind, we said, okay, let's look at psychometrics, because psychometrics helps understand personality traits. And then we created a model to look at how those personality traits would help us predict intention to behavior. Right? We actually built that model jointly with IIT Kharagpur. Right? So that's how we started. And in a way, we also knew that we had to create that, as I said, as part of the user journey. So we had to build something of our own. And it's good that we did, because then all of that data is now proprietary to us. We're able to understand their personality traits and make decisions on that. So that's on the psychometrics. But psychometrics by itself, we thought was not enough. We needed to do a little bit more. Right? So we thought about using biometrics. So we started with catching videos of customers, looking at matching face matching, voice matching as well. And then later on, sometime when hardware and software technology allows it, we would like to do a lot more. We would like to look at things like pupil dilation, pulse rate changes, body rate changes. All of these things help understand how a particular person is thinking, and then convert that thinking into a behavior of using that to predict future behavior of their financial problems. And third was gamification. Gamification also plays on the psychology of the user, where you're trying to influence certain user behavior through game techniques, right? So incentivizing, carrot stick approach, etc. Yeah. And we said that since we are dealing with a segment that's near bottom of the pyramid, we really want them to repay on time, and we really want them to pay digitally. So those are the two behaviors that we wanted to shift or influence. Right? So we started incentivizing users for those two behaviors. Develop vehicles, I guess everybody loves. Right, and that's easier said than done, because everybody says, oh, it's easy enough to build an app, but actually it's not easy enough to build an app.